Hi everybody, how are we all doing? I hope we're having a good Easter. Today is Easter Sunday, 27th of March 2016, and I've not long got back from my sixth viewing of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. This is the type of movie that does require multiple viewings just to really soak in what's going on with the film, because there is a lot happening. It is all over the place, so it takes a while to process. So more than at least I'd say 2 or 3 viewings if you're able to, then you might then feel comfortable with how the film's actually written out and the story as well. So what I'm actually doing for this video is taking a discussion on both the Nightmare Batman scene and also the music for the film. Okay, before I get onto that, I've just been having some discussion on Twitter with a few people because just got back, and it amazes me the amount of parents that are taking their kids to see this film. Now, I'm not talking about kids that are like 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. I'm talking about kids that are under the age of like 11. I'm sure the youngest that I saw there today must have been about 4 or 5 years old. And to be perfectly honest, I find that just a bit disturbing, because there are moments in this film that can scare a child and probably scar them for quite some time. I mean, to be fair, when I think I must have been about 8 or 9 years old, possibly a bit younger, maybe 7, I saw American Werewolf in London. Not at the cinema, actually at home. I was watching it at home. It came on TV. And to this day, that movie has not bothered me. I'd still watch it, and it wouldn't faze me in the slightest. So I guess some kids will be like that. They'll watch a film, there'll be some scary moments, and it just wouldn't faze them in the slightest. But then you'll have the other kids who'll be thinking, shit, what have I just been watching? I mean, come on, let's not forget Batman Begins, where Bruce Wayne was watching that theatre show with his parents, and there's bats there, and it really scared him. So things like that. You'll have the kids that won't be fazed by it. You will have the kids that are going to be thinking, Mum, Dad, let's get the hell out of here because I can't really watch this. There was a kid sat to my left. He was probably about 10 or 11, maybe a bit older, who, for the majority of the film, especially where all the action sequences were taking place, he had to cover his ears. He was covering his ears because he just couldn't cope with the loudness. And I felt sorry for him. I thought to myself, why bring this kid to this type of movie if all he's going to do is spend the majority of it covering his ears because it was too loud for him? It's just those sort of things. I mean, I have a son who's 14 years old. I'd happily take him to see this movie, and I would even let him to go and see the movie by himself, because he's at that age where I think it's perfectly okay for him to see it. If I had a kid that was younger than that, at least by about 5, 6, 7, 8 years younger than that, no, I wouldn't take that kid. I wouldn't want that kid to go and see that film, because for me, you're not ready for it. It's not right for you as yet. You might read the comics, and there might still be some elements in the comics that will also scare a child, because it's the same as giving the kids the comic books. Certain comic books they'll read and they'll think, oh, this is great, I love what I'm reading, and seeing the pictures and how it all interacts and stuff like that. But then you're going to get some kids who will look at a comic book and think, you know what, this is too scary for me, I don't really want to read this, I'm not comfortable with it. And to be fair, I will say this, there was a positive note, and I should have mentioned this on Twitter, which I probably will do anyway. But to be fair, when I did come out of seeing the film today, there were a number of kids, I'd say about early teens, and they all just basically agreed. There must have been about 6 of them. All of them agreed that it was better, that Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice was better than The Dark Knight Rises, and I was just like, okay, I can see where you're going with that. So that kind of made me a bit happy. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll let these kids off. They know what they're talking about. Clearly they've seen The Dark Knight Rises, and they thought Batman v Superman was so much better. So that gives you something to really gauge that the audience out there are enjoying this. Not all of them, but there is still that mixed confliction between the audiences and the fans and whatnot as well. But on the plus side, ladies and gentlemen, it's just been announced that the film has made just over $170 million in the US for this weekend. We're not even counting Sunday yet, okay? So we're counting, I'm guessing, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, has made 170 million, which is basically, it's just broken records for Best pre-summer opening, surpassing Hunger Games' 152 million, which was March 2012. Largest domestic opening for Warner Brothers ever. Previous record was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, which scored 169 million from 2011. The widest release pre-May, the largest Easter opening. Previous record was Furious 7's 147.2 million from last year. And the largest opening for a DC film, and the previous record for that was Dark Knight Rises, 160.9 million from 2012. And the biggest March opening ever, which the previous record again was The Hunger Games with 152 million from March 2012. So, what critics, if you'll excuse me. But it's also the 6th highest domestic opening ever in the US, passing up Harry Potter's Deathly Hallows Part 2 for 169.2 million, and just behind Iron Man 3, which got 174.1 million in its first opening weekend. So, it looks like this film could well make a serious amount of money. No problems on that part. So, as I say, forget what the critics are saying. Get out there, see the film, make your own mind up, okay? Because at the end of the day, it's the fans and the mainstream audience. You're the guys that will make this movie money. And even if you didn't like it, as I did say in my spoiler review the other day, you're not going to get a refund, are you? You've already given your money to the studio, so you're paying with your wallet, essentially. It's that simple. So yeah, the movie is definitely making money, and it'll be interesting to see how the international money totals up, either by tomorrow, or we'll find out probably tomorrow. After today, we'll find out tomorrow, and obviously on Tuesday we'll find out how Monday went as well, because it's still the Easter weekend, and it was the perfect weekend to release this film because it's a holiday season, and you couldn't have done it at a better time. And given what happens in the film, it's quite ironic as well that the film's released during Easter. So yeah, on the religious front, it's ironic how the film's released in Easter, and you see what happens in the film as well. So yeah, interesting. Anyway, rambled on long enough. Let's get on to what I was going to discuss anyway. So, the Nightmare Batman scene. Now, yes, it appeared in the film at the most random of moments. It's whilst Bruce Wayne is decrypting the drive that he got from Lex Luthor, the data that he copied off Lex Luthor's server at his residence during the party that he had. And whilst it's decrypting, we just see suddenly Metropolis has become, an apocalyptic type world. You see the fire pits. You've got the large Omega sign in the right on the ground as well. Batman's overlooking. He's seeing some trucks arriving via his binoculars, and they get to where he is, and he's asked them, did you bring it the Rock? Clearly, he's referring to the kryptonite. However, whilst they did say that they brought it, they actually didn't. They ambushed him. It was a trap, essentially. So at that moment, we see obviously Batman using guns. He's killing these Superman soldiers, and then parademons arrive. You get the parademons arriving, and at that point, even the bigger parademons, like the proper burly type parademons, are also in the scene as well, and it just begs the question, because what is interesting is that at the end of the film, when Batman is in the prison cell that Lex is holed up in, and then you hear Lex basically saying to Batman, the bell's already been rung, they've heard it. Ding dong, the god is dead. And then you're hearing them crying out saying, the bell cannot be unrung, he's heard it, he's coming, this, that and the other. And clearly, he's referring to Darkseid. He's clearly referring to Darkseid, because who else is he going to be referring to? Why else would Batman, or Bruce rather, have that nightmare scene? We even see Superman, when he arrives in that scene, he kills the people working for Batman with his heat vision, and says to Batman, you took her away from me, she was my world. Clearly referring to Lois. And just as soon as that scene ends, the Flash arrives to tell Bruce that Lois Lane is the key. And that goes back to the likes of Kingdom Come, and also an episode of the Superman animated series, where we see Metropolis has become this desolate and dark apocalyptic world. Superman has pretty much become Darkseid's, lackey essentially, and he's more brutal than he used to be when Lois was alive. And it's the fact that Lois is dead is the reason why Superman becomes this bad and evil and dictator type character. And it stands to reason that with the Flash coming back from the future to warn Bruce, to say to him, you were right about him, but Lois Lane is the key. Okay? But what the Flash realizes, when he's looking at Bruce, Bruce is like, wait, who are you? And that's when the Flash realizes, hang on, I'm too soon. I've arrived at the wrong point. It's too soon for me to tell you all this, but I'm going to tell you anyway, and he tells Bruce to find them. Find us as soon as he can. And then clearly he's talking about the rest of the Justice League. Okay, so Aquaman, Cyborg in there as well. We've seen Wonder Woman already. We know about the Flash as well. And at the end of the film, Superman's funeral, well, Clark Kent's funeral anyway, we hear obviously Bruce telling Diana he wants her to help him find the others, because he's got a feeling something's going to happen. And I'm wondering if the scene at the prison takes place before Bruce is at Clark's funeral. Even though he says it's just a feeling, does he take on into account what Lex told him in prison as well? Because, as I say, going back to that nightmare scene, and you see how Metropolis has just been wasted and it's become the new apocalypse. Essentially, it looks like Earth has become the new apocalypse, which is what Darkseid has been wanting to do for a long time. If you've read Final Crisis, you will know that Darkseid and all the other new gods of apocalypse all arrive on Earth possessing other characters. Darkseid himself possesses Dan Turpin, the Metropolis police commissioner, essentially, if that's what I want to call him. He possesses his body because he's dying, and he uses Dan Turpin's body to become the new Darkseid, and that sort of thing. That's the type of mentality I'm getting from Zack in terms of what he wants to do with this film, and then further on with the Justice League. Because Superman dies in this film, he sacrifices himself as well, and that's saying, because there's an article here that I've got in front of me where Zack Snyder explains the reason Superman is dead and the reason why Batman is going to be the one to recruit the Justice League. And he says it here, and I'll read it out to you. He says it here. He says, the ending of Batman v Superman was designed to show that Superman was willing to make himself collateral damage if it meant saving others. If you read The Death of Superman and any other comic book story involving Superman, he really much is all about sacrificing himself to save other people. Okay, I felt like we had to kill Superman in this movie in order for us to have been serious with the entire premise of the film, and that's not to say that he clearly is gone forever. World without a Superman. So I think Justice League Part 1 is going to be a World Without Superman inspiration. It's going to be inspired by the World Without Superman, because how else is Bruce? How else are they going to come together? If Superman was still alive, and then he went and met all these other characters and say, look, you guys, I need you to join me. They're all going to think, well, you're pretty much the big gun anyway. What do you need us for? But without him in the picture, it gives Bruce more, how should I put it, leverage. Not leverage per se, but more conviction to convince them to join him and Diana. It's one of those things, because we do see, when we look at his casket close up at the very end of the film, you see some of the earth rising. Okay, he says it here. He says that there was another more practical reason that Zack Snyder decided to go this route as well. He felt Justice League, which begins shooting in April, would be a stronger story if it didn't have Superman assembling the team, as I've just said earlier on. I wanted Bruce Wayne to build the Justice League. I felt like with Superman around, it's a different conversation when you create the Justice League, right? It's like, me and Superman, we want to make a Justice League. Other heroes would be like, okay, yeah, I'll join. I just feel like Bruce Wayne having to go out and find these seven samurai by himself, because that's where he's inspired by, the seven samurai. That's a lot more interesting of a premise. And it also forces Bruce to put his detective skills to work as he and Wonder Woman set out to find Aquaman, the Flash, Cyborg, and the others. I also felt like without Superman, there is definitely a vulnerability to the team that they're going to need to figure something out. Superman does represent the powerful. He's the Michael Jordan of heroes. He's going to score. Precisely, he's right in that He's right in that sense, because if you have Superman helping Batman to recruit the other members of Justice League, they're just going to join straight away. Without Superman, they've got that vulnerability. They will have to work together as a team to essentially, one, get Superman back, two, fighting off Darkseid. Okay, it says it here, he comes very close to death in space, which is where the nuclear bomb hits him in Doomsday. And the reason why we did that is because I wanted to show and keep the idea in the viewer's mind that he can come pretty close to death and the sun can revive him, or he can be revived. But after Doomsday, the Justice League is going to have to make a more drastic measures of resuscitation. As in, I think something more is going to need to be done. Okay? It's not going to be a case of he's suddenly going to come alive. Yes, we do see the little bits of earth rising in his, on top of his coffin. But that doesn't mean, poof, he's alive already. Remember at the end of the death of Superman, okay, his coffin was empty. Okay? World Without a Superman, or was it World Without, no, sorry. World Without Superman, at the end of that, his coffin was empty. Then throughout Return of Superman is where he starts to, come back. His journey to coming back as the hero that we all know. And it's the last paragraph here says it perfectly as far as I'm concerned. And this is where I go back to what I mentioned about the film being released over the Easter weekend. I felt like there's a mythological journey for Superman, Snyder says. There's the birth, death, and resurrection thing. And when you bring him back, who knows what he is when he comes back. Because don't forget, Return of Superman, the world was very skeptical. Well, not the world. Some people were. Because Dan Jurgens, who wrote Death of Superman and also Return of Superman, brought in Cyborg Superman, Superboy, Steel, and Eradicator Superman. All these four Supermen all had a different agendas. We know what Cyborg Superman was all about. Superboy, we knew what he was about, where he came from. And we also know where Cyborg Superman came from. We knew about Steel, and we also know about Eradicator Superman as well. But all of them had their own agenda. So the question is, when Superman does come back in the Justice League film, which one of those four Supermen is he going to represent? Or is he going to be a combination of all four, and it's going to be up to the Justice League to get him back to who he was before he was killed by Doomsday? Or is it going to be a case of he's going to have to go through his own personal journey? Are we going to see his fortress as well? Because it'll be interesting to see how he gets revived from the Justice League Part 1 film. Who knows? Is he going to wear the classical black and silver suit that he wore in Return of Superman? Because that was a damn good suit. Because if you saw the black coffin that they showed in the film, it had the silver logo for the S symbol, which was a nice touch, I think. So yeah, there's definitely a lot going on. There's more to this film than what we're just seeing. Okay, so reading that article does give us a bit more of a idea of where Zack is going with the Justice League. I honestly still think that parts of it will also be influenced by the Justice League Origin / Justice League War comic book animated film that was done about a year or so ago. But again, Funeral for a Friend I think is going to be heavily used for Justice League Part 1 for the guys, for the rest of the Justice League to get together, find a way to get Superman back whilst still facing against the threat of Darkseid, and maybe we might not even see Darkseid in probably till the end of Justice League Part 1. We might see all his lackeys, Desard, Godfrey, Granny Goodness, any of them could show up. Who knows who it could be. There's also a theory that Lex himself might not actually be Lex Luthor, but is possessed by one of Darkseid's minions. Who could it be? Could it be Godfrey? Or could it be Desard? Because why else would he say, he's heard the bell, it's been rung, he's coming? He has to have some knowledge, or somewhere in his life, Lex was either visited, or has been possessed, or has been coerced into taking down Superman so that Darkseid can arrive on Earth and do what he wants to do. Look for the anti-life equation and pretty much destroy Earth and make Earth the new apocalypse. There's a lot going on, people. A lot. But again, so much going on. See, this is what I mean about this film. A lot of people are going to come out of it and think, what have I just watched? But if you really sit back, like I have done, the amount of times that I've watched it now, and we're reading all these other articles that are coming out from Zach and everybody else that was involved in the film, to really understand of what's going on, where the film is likely to go, it starts to paint a clearer picture, okay? To really understand how this film is, why this film has been made, and what it means for the future films that are due to come out as well. Like I say, we've seen Aquaman, we've seen Cyborg, we've seen The Flash. Wonder Woman's heavily present in this film. It was brilliant. Her film comes out next year. Justice League Part 1 will come out next year. But before all that, we've got Suicide Squad in August, which is going to take place just after the events of Batman v Superman. So what is going on with Suicide? Who are the Squad taking on? Because it looks very alien or mystical in some ways as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that unfolds. But yeah, I want to move on now to the music. Okay, Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL both collaborated together to make the music for this film, and I've been listening to the soundtrack since it was released on the 18th, non-stop. Anytime I'm going to work, coming home from work, on my lunch, whatever, even when I've been going to the cinema, walking there and walking back, I've just been listening to it intently. And there's so many awesome tracks on there. Their War Here, Beautiful Lie, Problems Up Here, Tuesday, which I think they should have wanted to call Doomsday, but obviously that would have just spoiled everything altogether. Yeah, we know the second trailer kind of spoiled it, but if you'd have put Doomsday in the soundtrack, then you would have thought, okay, something definitely interesting is happening here. But they called it Tuesday, and that kind of reminded me of a bit of Solomon Grundy. The poem for Solomon Grundy basically is Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, christened on a Tuesday, married on Wednesday, took ill on Thursday, grew worse on Friday, died on Saturday, buried on Sunday, and that was the end of Solomon Grundy. Kind of like a bit of a hint towards that. Maybe that's where they were going, who knows. But yeah, so Tuesday was the name of that track. I haven't picked out my favourite, but they're all amazing. But if you listen to what was the name of that particular track? It's the one where it's the Batman, it's the nightmare scene anyway, okay? And when you listen to it carefully, the way that it sounds makes the sounds of the fire pits in Apocalypse. So when you listen to it, you think they've really nailed the theme down for this film. Because even Lex Luthor's theme in particular just sounds amazing. I mean, you see it when he walks into the site of the crashed Kryptonian ship. And as he's walking, each step he takes, the music just plays to his step. Yes, they've slowed down his walking, but it's good that they've done that. It's just the way that happens, it's just absolutely amazing. It really is amazing. And like I say, I think that track that I was referring to about Nightmare Superman, I think that's called Must There Be a Superman. And it's just, you're just listening to it, and it's just listen to the entire soundtrack, and it's just from start to finish, it is absolutely beautiful. So well done to Hans, and well done to Junkie XL, aka Tom Holkenborg. I think they've done a phenomenal job, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if you hear Wonder Woman's theme, I think that's the best one actually. Now that I think about it, Is She With You is the track it's called, number 11. When she arrives and stops Doomsday from neutralizing, basically desecrating Batman, as soon as you see her with the bracelets, the music just starts, and you just feel this awe-inspiring feeling that you're just like, fuck yeah, Wonder Woman's here, let's let this shit get on. It's just absolutely brilliant. And throughout the entire sequence of that fight scene with Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman all taking on Doomsday, the music just goes well with it. Pretty, just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, there are so many elements to this film that I absolutely loved. Yes, as I say, it has its flaws, it has its faults. It is all over the place. But again, if people just sort of took a back seat, take a look, and if you watch this video, for example, you've watched the movie, you will now have a clearer understanding of why this film has been made, why Superman has died, and why Batman is going to be the one to bring the Justice League together as well. It makes sense, okay? For me, I think it does make sense, and I can see where Zack is going with it, and it's not a bad idea. I know that a lot of Superman fans out there are still not happy that we get Batman in this film, but it makes sense, okay? It makes perfect sense. So just take a back seat. Don't get too embroiled in it. Take a back seat. Look at the bigger picture, because this film is essentially, how did Chris Terrio put it? He's writing Justice League Part 1, and for him, Justice League Part 1, he said it in an interview that Justice League Part 1 is going to be of a lighter tone, okay? The Flash is also going to be a lighter tone as well. James Wan has also confirmed at WonderCon this weekend that Aquaman is going to be more fun. It's still going to be serious, it's going to have its dark moments, but overall, it's going to be fun. So, after Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, I think Warners are going to start taking their journey of their films into a lighter tone, okay? Whereas after Captain America Civil War, Marvel are going to go in a more darker path, okay? It is going to happen. Whilst Marvel have been doing all the light stuff, Warners have been doing all the darker stuff, eventually both entities are going the other way. They are going to go the other way. So, yeah. And I think Chris Terrio described Justice League Part 1 as the Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy that he's doing. So, obviously, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2. So, he sees Justice League Part 1 as the Empire Strikes Back, whereas Dawn of Justice is like a new hope. Essentially, it's like a new hope, and then obviously Justice League Part 2 would be like Return of the Jedi, you know, which I think is where Superman is going to be more prominent in that film as well. Yes, he's going to appear in Justice League Part 1, but to what capacity we don't know. So yeah, it's like the Star Wars saga, but for comic books and superheroes and stuff. Yes, Star Wars has comic books as well, but you know what I mean, okay? You see what I'm getting at. So it's happening, people, okay? You have nothing to worry about. As far as I'm concerned, the DC Comics universe, the DC Extended Universe for the films is in good hands with... Geoff Johns is heavily involved, okay? Don't just think, oh, well, Zack Snyder is like the Kevin Feige for DC. No, he's not. It's Geoff Johns. Geoff Johns is one of the executive producers for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. He's going to be executive producer for also Wonder Woman. He's going to be on board. He's on board for the whole entire slate. He is the Kevin Feige of DC, okay? Because he's not only just doing the films, but he's also doing the comics, and he's doing the TV shows. This guy is so busy, it's unbelievable. Watching their WonderCon stream last night for the DC Rebirth that's coming out in June. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Geoff, and you can see how excited this guy is for this project, for this Rebirth project. He's so excited, it's amazing. And as I say, because he's involved in everything, comics, TV, movies, that guy, he is just busy. And it's awesome to see that. And if you guys know Geoff Johns, you will know just how hardworking he is and how much he's bringing these awesome characters that we all know and love not just to the big screen, not just to the small screen, but also on paper in comics as well. He is basically talking to everybody, whether they're an artist, a writer, a director, a producer, an executive producer, whatever their position throughout the entire DC Comics, Warner Brothers business. He is pretty much the center of everything. Okay, he's the reason why we are getting a lot of these TV shows and movies and comics as well. He's pretty much, that's why he's their chief creative officer. Okay, he's like the backbone as far as I'm concerned. Yes, others are in there as well. You've got Jim Lee, you've got Dan Didio, Diane Nelson as well, Kevin Sijihara as well in there. They're all involved, but I think the one person who's like the go-to guy for it all is Geoff Johns. He is the DC man, basically. So, as I say, it's in good hands. Don't worry yourself. Yes, you might not like Zack Snyder's directing, but look at it in a bigger picture. There is a bigger picture out there, people. It's not just what you've just seen already. There's more coming. There is a lot more coming, and I can't wait. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all very much for watching. Again, if you've seen the film, let me know what you thought of it. See you all very soon. Bye. Okay, just to add, during the time that I was doing the entire video there, it's not long just been announced that Batman v Superman has made $424.1 million worldwide. And just to really go into detail, internationally, you're going to love this, it's made $254 million outside of the US, okay? Batman v Superman marks the biggest superhero opening weekend of all time, the all-time biggest March opening, Warner Brothers Pictures' biggest opening of all time in China, and Warner Brothers' second biggest international opening of all time, behind Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. In China alone, Batman v Superman grossed an estimated $57.3 million. In the UK, we estimated $21.9 million, Brazil 12.2, Korea with 10.5, and in Australia with $10 million. So critics can eat it, and haters as well. Cheers.